Welcome back to another episode of the MiniBrute 2 cookbook tutorial series I'm doing, where I cook up the recipes and show you how to make what we're doing. And today's episode is the Sub Drop by Victor Morello. The recipe has a long decaying base that will make your subwoofer happy, but not your neighbors. Adjust the AD decay time for different results. So this is what it sounds like. Or at least this is what I came up with, right? So let me show you how I got here. As always, we start off with nothing. Always start off with a neutral patch with nothing going on. No resonance, the filter's all the way open, whatever. Your pitch is more or less in the middle. Out of tune from itself, but that's fine. Okay, so we're going to start off, obviously we need some sound, right? We're going to start off with using a triangle wave for this, with a little bit of noise, just a little bit, just for a little sparkle on top. Now, this particular patch calls for the fine-tuning of oscillator 1 to be all the way down. I find that not to be ideal, and I'll explain why when we get there. But for right now, we're going to keep it how the patch says to go, so we all get the similar results, right? We can already hear there's a bass involved. There's some little bit of. See, by itself, the triangle wave by itself, it sounds nice. It sounds great. It's just kind of boring, So we put just a little bit of that sparkle in it, just a little bit of that razzle dazzle from the noise oscillator. It gives us just some extra set of harmonics with which to work, right? The next thing that we want to do is start engaging the filter, right? Now, according to the recipe book, that's correct, but we have no tone. Oh, no. Well, here's what we need to do. We have to take our patch cable, go from the keyboard output in the MIDI module to the, the attenuator 1, right? Which is pre-wired to go to the cutoff, okay? So now, when we play a note on our keyboard, it's not doing anything right now. But as we go up the note on the keyboard, when we turn this attenuator all the way up, it opens or closes the cutoff in accordance with how high or low you are on the keyboard. Now, it's kind of hard to tell, but if I turn the noise oscillator all the way up and the resonance up a lot, remember that the the resonance is a function of how the filter works. I could get into the technicals of that, but we're not going to do that today. So, as the filter sweeps up and down, based on where our keyboard is, that resonance is changing in the spectrum as well. So, we're going to use that, but again, only with the triangle and a little bit of the noise. Now, we also don't need quite that much, so we're going to turn that filter all the way back down and bring this attenuator to, I don't know, maybe about the 1 o'clock position. You just want the filter to move open and close as you go up and down the keys. You don't necessarily need it to be some crazy thing. Because most of the tone being generated from the sound, most of the character being generated from the sound comes next. All right? The next thing we need to do is use some frequency modulation. I feel like I lost a lot of my volume there. Oh, the filter. Oh, right. We also need to adjust the decay. Oh, we haven't gotten that far yet. My bad. Let me back up. So, we have a filter that opens and closes in relation to what pitch we're playing, okay? But it's still it sounds good, and you could literally stop right here and Use this, render it out, normalize it, put a little bit of, maybe a little saturation on if you want it. You don't really need to do that. You just, and that's a totally viable sub kick or a sub bass. By the way, I have engaged the FM over here, the frequency modulation on the oscillator, but I just turned it back down because, you know, I mean, that works really nice for a sub, like just a regular sub bass, right? So we could even use the ADSR envelope. Turn that resonance down just a little bit. There you go. There's a nice, easy, put just a little attack and decay on it so this sounds not quite so poppy when the amplitude wise it doesn't quite punch in as quick. But you know, with that, I mean that's a sub right there. So now let's just make it do a sub drop, okay? So again, we'll get that filter a little bit lower, turn our resonance back up. We're going to disengage these parameters, the ADSR and the AD envelope, because I want them to be as by the book as possible, right? So we're going to engage the frequency modulation, right, which is pre-wired to go from VCO1 to VCO2, and take the output of the AD envelope and go to the frequency modulation input. So what's going to happen is the voltage from the attack and decay envelope, as it's triggered, oh yeah, that it is. It's on trigger mode as well. As it's triggered, is going to adjust how much frequency modulation is happening on VCO1. So as this sweeps down, so will the FM over here. So this is what it sounds like. Nothing, right? Now we're getting somewhere. Now, this is where I said, oops. This is where I said your tuning will matter, but not quite yet, right? This is where it does. So, once again, you know, saturate that. And you'll have to pitch it too. You'll have to tune it. So you got your tone. And that's basically it. That's your basic sub drop there. So you can adjust the attack, the attenuator 1 knob to adjust how open the filter gets in relation to what key you press. You can also adjust the actual just cut off. But I find being conservative with that that cutoff is a little bit, you know, that's the way you want to handle that. Yeah, the FM comes from the AD, so it doesn't really matter what the VCO2 is. But the tuning here matters because, remember, the filter opens and closes in relation to where the keyboard is, not in relation to where the tuning of your synth is. So you may find a case like here where that G, which is as low as, you know, you could really want to go anyway, you almost can't hear it. It's still coming through, but it's like the filter's almost too closed. So, but let's say I like the ratio of how open it gets later on, right? So if I go back down to the lower register, play that G again. If I don't like where it is on the low end, but I like where it is on the high end. So what I'm going to do is just bring the low end up and then decrease how much it goes up to the high end. So it's going to be a little bit of like, you know, wiggling around and figuring it out, but okay, so there I'm starting to hear the sound versus the filter, right? So I can still hear that G a little bit better here just by bringing that tune up just a little bit. It's wild how little you actually have to do this. But you just kind of have to mess with it until you figure out what you're trying to do and figure out how to make it work. It's like you have to hear the changes in the sound, right? Because like obviously this is a way higher pitch, but it's like the filter's not quite opening enough to let us hear it, right? So you want to keep the low range low. So that the high range can get up higher, right? Now that was a bit extreme, like that's not the kind of sub drop that we're looking to use, right? We're looking for something more like that. So that's what we got. Now we can put a little brute factor on if we want. You know, it tends to be a subtle effect at the lower pitches, lower frequencies, lower spectrum. But there you have it. There's your sub drop. So the way that I would go about using this is I would probably render that out, and then find the one drop that sounds the best to me. It doesn't matter what pitch it's in or where it is or whatever. Just find the one that sounds the best. Then tune that to as close to a whole tone or, you know, a regular tone as possible. You know, some like a F sharp, whatever it is. Tune that as close as possible using Melodyne or Auto-Tune or whatever, you know, just get that sub drop as close as possible. And then use a sampler, and then you can play it in pitch like it's a keyboard. You know what I'm saying? And then there you go. You have your sub drop. Such a simple sound. You want this particular type of sound, a sub drop like this. You don't want it to get too crazy. You know, I mean, unless you're into like, you're doing like rhythm stuff and like the whole point of the game is like to just be as crazy as possible. But if you're looking for a sub drop like this, typically you want something that's going to be a little understated, because you want it to create movement in the overall wave. You don't need it to like totally blow everything else out of the water. You know, a sub drop sits in its own frequency range. So you don't need to blast it to push everything out. You know, pay attention to what frequencies are coming through, get your sub just where you need it, and just by the nature of it being there will reduce your headroom by whatever it needs to, like, you know, against your limiter. It like, this is, I'm talking about like hardcore mixing stuff, but like, you don't need to go crazy with a sub drop, because when you go to limit everything and push it up and get and boost it and master everything later, it'll come through. So get it sounding tasty, get it sounding smooth and sweet. And, you know, you can always dirty it up later. That's fine. If it's not crazy enough, or you can always make it crazier later, but get it smooth and sweet out of here. You're making love to your synth with this one. Okay. You don't have to like pound its head in. It'll take it. It'll do what it needs to do. So, as always, experiment, have fun, play around, see what you can come up with. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.